actually a class I think about with that. And have you guys ever struggled with math and all of a sudden one day you understand something and you just feel like your IQ just shot up like 40%, walk around a little straighter, a little taller?
You feel like a genius.
That's one of those really hard things about this class. You don't there is no threshold where you get to a point where all of a sudden you sit there and go, wow, I got it. And I mean, sometimes with an idea, perhaps, but there isn't that kind of like, I got the objectively correct answer. Some of you will get your assignments back from me, and you'll see my comments on it. I'll cross something out and say, inaccurate, this is not the main claim. I'll circle something and say, depth, needs more details about this.
Oh, nice.
And your whole paper, I'm doing that, and then you'll go, and you look at the score, and it'll say 30 out of 30. And you'll be like, huh? How come I got full credit on this when I have all these things wrong with it? And it'll be unsatisfying. Or maybe you'll get the grade back, and you'll get 27 out of 30, let's say, which is still an A, and then you'll go through and there's no comments, and you're like, and there's almost like this unsatisfying thing where it's like, it's nice to get that score, but there was no aha moment where you crossed over and you're like, I got this answer. I solved for X.
There it is.
Yeah, if I ever have to find X in life, I'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, math is like that. The only math classes I ever took in college, from an undergraduate all the way through my PhD, was statistics. I never took any other math classes.
Oh.
And when I was in high school, I took consumer math. And consumer math is like, you buy something for $19.82, you give them a $20 bill, how much change do you get back? That's the math. Yeah, that's the math I took when I was in high school. And then I went to college, and it was statistics. And that's all I ever took. I never took anything beyond statistics. I mean, nothing except for that. I had to get prerequisite waivers to allow myself to even take those classes. But there's a great thing. I remember exactly where I was at one point, where I was sitting there going and I remember my thought process was really this: Scanlon, there are people who are not as smart as you who get this stuff. And that's a great realization for you to have in life, by the way. If you look around a room at some point, and you don't even have to be with one of the smartest people in the classroom, you just have to be average. And you look around and go, there's a lot of average people here who seem to get it. And if they can get it, then that means I can too. And then that changes that I can't into, at least it's possible.
True.
And once it's possible, then that means that someone can do it. It's kind of like, think about, like Mike Rowe talks about, don't follow your passion. Dream jobs are just that. This is true. But think about your dream job, what you think you really want to do in life. And the fact of the matter is that someone's going to do it. So therefore, that means it's possible. So why not you? If you want to be a singer, someone's going to do it. So I mean, someone's going to make music. Why not you? You want to play a professional sport. Well, someone's going to play that professional sport. So why not you? In other words, once you kind of get into your head that it's possible, now there's a reason to kind of pursue things. We tend to fall away from pursuing things when we feel like it's not possible. And so once you think of it that way, then there's no reason to put yourself, in fact, forget, there's no reason to put yourself into it. There's lots and lots of reasons not to pour yourself into it. And you talk yourself out of it, and then we end up settling for something that we never really wanted in the first place. I'll leave it at that. Another hand I saw 10 minutes ago. Yes?
Wait, can I talk about the quote?
No, I want you to talk about my greatness.
So,
Scan.
Don't worry, it won't take long. Go ahead.
what I thought about it was, I think it's trying to say, to completely avoid, what's, commonly considered unpleasant in life, is essentially impossible. So, I think it's, better to be able to, bear those unpleasant things without having it, disturb your life,
I don't know how carefully you just chose your word there, but it was precise, that it's essentially impossible to avoid the harshness of life. In other words, suffering is essential to life. I say that all the time, that life is suffering. We don't get to choose not to suffer, but we can choose what we're going to suffer for. That's freedom. And so think about what would be a harshness or some sort of a harshness in life that can't be avoided. Death.
I was about
God
to say.
damn it. Right to death.
What's wrong? I mean, that's the one thing we can't avoid.
Yeah. That's not true.
Debt.
Taxes.
Oh, you can avoid taxes, believe me.
It
Free.
would be the fucking time.
Big debt. Debt.
Death. Yeah, death is kind of pretty much it.
No, I mean,
But even then, you can avoid death. Kind of. I died once.
the inside or outside?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not metaphorically here.
Oh, okay.
Also, hard stop. Fucking.
No, it was even worse than that. I was back when I was 21. I was having some trouble with my speech. I was slurring a lot. I already stutter. If you guys have figured that out, I stutter. So I was slurring a lot. I was stuttering more. I couldn't concentrate. So I went to the doctor to get checked out. And they did a bunch of tests, scans, and so forth. And I went to for my follow-up for them to share the results. And I remember exactly. I was sitting on this observation table. And I didn't need to because there was a chair in the room, and I felt like I wanted to be all official and sit on the observation table. And the doctor ends up coming, gives that knock before they come in, and he has the nurse with him. And his nurse is carrying this little paper. The doctor has this very concerned look on his face, and he says to me, John, my first name is John. My whole name is John Stephen Joseph Slane Scanlon. But I don't go by John, I go by Stephen because my dad's name was John, my sister's name was Jonna, my brother's name was John.
Oh my god.
And that blows your mind?
No, because
This
it's
is
like
a
this.
junior
This is
dad.
like this is like the
God,
second.
there's a junior in the world.
No,
Oh
no,
my
this
God.
is like the second time I hear a family with almost the exact same name, and it's like so weird. I was like, all right, how are you gonna figure out which ones you're talking to at this point?
That's true. It's an uncommon name, John.
I know. No, it's common. I know that.
So I've always gone by Stephen. And so
Thank
anyway,
God.
but people call me John all the time, and all my IDs and everything. So it's not unusual for me. So he comes and he says, John, there's really no easy way to say this. And he goes on to explain to me that I have a brain tumor. It's inoperable, and I've got 6 months to live. Yeah. And the nurse is standing there, and she has this pamphlet, and he says, I understand this is very difficult for you, and we want to give you some resources to help you through this hard time. And the nurse hands me this pamphlet. It was a trifold pamphlet. I remember looking at it, and it was titled Coping with Death.
Wow, they're really not sugarcoating it, huh?
It was a trifold. It was beautiful, by the way. It was colored, glossy. It had a bunch of pictures. There's a picture of a sunset, which of course is like a nice way of saying you're about to die. The sun is setting on your life.
Where's the tombstone?
And so I was, and I'm glad there weren't any pictures
God.
of old people on there because, like I said, I was only 21. I wouldn't feel like I could relate to this thing at all. And so anyway, I look on the back, and there's all these phone numbers of support groups of other people, I guess, who are dying as well. And I remember looking at that. My immediate thought was, that's so funny. The people who led these groups when this thing was printed are probably dead already. And they've had to pass these groups on to other people. And so I look up, and he's standing. The nurse is very, empathetic. She's a sweet woman, I suppose. And the doctor was saying, there's plenty of information there. We'll do some follow-ups just to see how things are progressing. But it's difficult. You'll want to process it, but you'll also want to get your affairs in order as soon as possible. So I remember I walked out of that room and then out of the office, and I was standing there holding this stupid pamphlet on the sidewalk. And I'm watching, and as I'm standing there looking like this, the whole world is going by. Cars are going by. People are walking down the sidewalk. People are walking around me annoyed, visibly annoyed that I'm standing there on the sidewalk holding this pamphlet. And it occurred to me that not one person who was passing me cared if I was living or dying. Now, of course, they could have known that I was dying. But if they did know, I'm not so sure that they would care, except for the fact that I was standing in their way on the sidewalk. And so the fact that nobody here knew I was going to die, it struck me as this really odd thing, though, that so someone walks past me and they're step around me. I'm like, why would that bother me? That someone who doesn't care if I live or die is annoyed by me standing on a sidewalk. And so often this will happen where we'll see someone who'll be bothered by us or annoyed by us and I'm sorry. That person doesn't care if you live or die. They only care because you're an obstacle in the way. The same way that I'd be annoyed that this podium here is in my way. If I'm walking past it, I think nothing at all of pushing it aside. They would, except for social convention, they would care nothing at all about pushing you aside. Many people are like this. So I ended up going home. Had my pamphlet, and those 12 steps you're supposed to go through when you suffer tragedy, denial and
Yeah.
Anger, bargaining, and
Yeah.
so finally I got to the end of acceptance, and I went through all these stages like in 2 hours, all 12 stages in like 2 hours.
Oh my.
It was a tumultuous 2 hours, and I thought to myself, well, if you've only got 6 months, then you need to make sure that you do the most possible with it, and that means investing your time, not spending your time. And this is where I first really internalized this idea that I talk about sometimes of investing time rather than spending time. And so I started thinking about the things in my life that I wanted to do and the things in my life that really actually took away from the quality of my life. So the first thing I decided was I'm going to stop paying bills. Because who enjoys paying bills? Now, again, today it's a lot easier. This is like 20 years ago, so it wasn't, you didn't just go online with your phone and make a payment. You had to sit there, write out a check, whatever. So autopay was just starting, and so I said, I put all of my bills on autopay. And they've been on autopay ever since then. I've never gone back to it after this. And then I started thinking about the people in my life who actually take away from my life. Those kind of like those psychic vampires who seem to bring negativity or pull out of your life or whatever. And that doesn't just mean people who need you or can use you, but I'm talking about people who actively, like, you feel drained after interacting with them. And I just decided I'm going to stop returning all those phone calls and hanging out with those people. And I started thinking about the things in my life I wanted to do. And not like those kinds of things where you sit there and go like, I've always wanted to skydive. Yeah, I thought about those things as well and kind of mentally compiled a list, but it was more of, can you make the most, you can't skydive every day, so can you make the most of it every day and how possible to do that? And so I started to live this way. One of the things that, again, struck me was, because when you're trying to figure something like that out, it really strikes you how short life is. And even if life is very long, by the way, even if your life is 100 years, in the grand scheme of eternity, that's really short. You think back about how old your grandparents are, they lived quite a while, and yet you don't have enough time with them. And so how best to spend the time, inevitably, still, even today for me, becomes the question. And it strikes me as a thing that is unspeakably sad in a life that's just so short as ours. So how best to spend the time, how best to spend the time, how best to invest the time. And so I just started to continue to live my life. I still went to work because I enjoyed it. I did like it. I liked the people there, so I went there. But I went there with a different focus. My focus was no longer have to make money. It was, I want to be here. And because I wanted to be there, my whole approach and attitude towards everything changed. Everything changes. Anywhere that you want to be, like I said, some of us who hate being here right now will be happy to pay $20,000 a year to be here next year. If you follow him, like you're paying to go to school. We hate being in school here. We do everything we can to avoid it. We want to ignore what the teacher is saying. Oh my God, is Scanlon still talking? And then next year you'll pay $20,000 to go listen to somebody else talk for 2 hours straight with no stop. And we'll sit there and go, education.
This is how I learn.
For some reason we hate it 1 year earlier. And why? The difference is that you have to be somewhere versus you're choosing to be somewhere. And so I found my life that I was just choosing to be anywhere I wanted to be. And wherever I wanted to be, I made that kind of the place to be. It wasn't that being in a classroom was the place to be. It was that since I was there, mentally, I made it the place to be. I'm here, I'm going to get something out of this. I'm here with these people, I'm going to get something out of this interaction. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to learn something as well. I'm going to grow.